Welcome, everyone. This is Holly Magnuson, and we are here with Ask the Security Guy, Shawn Kohrman. Just a couple of reminders. There should be the Q&A option over on the right-hand side of your screen where you can submit questions as we go along, and as questions come in, we'll take breaks from time to time and answer those. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Shawn as he's going to talk to us about the news on the Chase compromise that happened not too long ago. So Shawn, take it away.
Good morning. So JP Morgan Chase in October had a fairly significant breach. And when I say fairly significant, it's probably the largest yet that we've seen. So far, what we've seen is 76 million households were affected and 7 million small businesses. Now, the household figure actually translates to approximately 200 million Americans, including people who have interacted with Chase but aren't actually customers. So if you've gotten mail from Chase, if you've gotten advertisements from Chase, if you've had a car loan or some other type of loan handled by Chase at one point but then sold off, chances are they have your information and lost it. The other bit of, there is good news associated with this though. Chase only lost demographic or contact information. So they didn't lose your credit card numbers, they didn't lose any bank account numbers or stuff like that. So it's a good thing because we don't have the outright financial fraud to consider and worry about, but it has a ripple effect that we'll talk about in a minute that can be actually more problematic. As far as notification goes, Chase is not notifying its customers. They have a link on their webpage to a security disclosure regarding the breach, but because no financial information was lost, they are not, in fact, notifying their customers the way Target did and the way Home Depot did. When asked about that by a number of media outlets, they responded was, we just aren't doing it that way. That has caused an interesting backlash reaction, but fact of the matter is, in the state in which they are based, because no financial information was lost, they are not required to do a breach notification. The fact of the matter is that the fact that they're doing a web notification, which is something better than nothing, shows their commitment and their perception of the severity of the problem. So to talk about what we can expect as consumers from this type of breach, again, just contact information is stolen, name, address, phone number, and then any other general type information they may have on your household, but not, again, financial information. So in thinking about this, there's several threads and contact mechanisms that can come from this. One, emails that mimic the bank's official messages can be going out. We've seen this before with Chase, with Bank of America, we've seen it with Wells Fargo. And essentially what it is it's an email that comes, it looks legitimate, it feels legitimate, it uses fairly good language, but somewhere in there is a web link that leads off to a page that probably also looks legitimate, but the URL or the web page address is slightly off, or it's a little funky, or it has chase.com.eu or CC or something else, or it doesn't have the lock, the HTTPS, on the left-hand side of the address. So what scammers will do is they will use that to collect the information they don't have, your bank account number, your PIN, your social security number, to complete what they've already got and to create a full profile on you for identity theft and or financial fraud. Another tactic that, because of the nature of the data that was lost, is snail mail. Actual letters in your mail that can come out to you and offering various kinds of services. These will not just be from Chase. They'll be from all kinds of scam artists. I saw on the various outlets that I read, people are getting things from saying they're from the New York Times, telling them to renew their subscription. The problem is the average New York Times subscription costs anywhere from $400 to $500 a year because they bill monthly. The letters that were coming out were for an annual subscription of over $1,000. And they had a URL that was not NewYorkTimes.com. So those are actual letters that are going out. And the data may or may not be derived from what was lost from Chase. It's not to say with any definitive answer that that's how they got a hold of their name, but with 200 million names and addresses out there, it's a reasonable guess. Because at the end of the day, this affects nearly 2/3 of American households. And that information is now out there in the wind. So lastly, as we talk about the various mechanisms that the scammers can come at us and the increase that we can see, especially going into the holiday season, is phone calls. So random phone calls, tech support, selling something, refinance your house, and they're going to sound very convincing. They're going to have a good script, and they're going to try to move you very quickly through the information gathering process so that they can get you there before you realize what you just gave up. So be very thoughtful about what they're asking, validate them. If they claim they're coming from a reputable company, Chase, another bank, a retail outlet, a mortgage company, and they're using a name that you recognize, hang up and call them back at a number that you have on file or that you can look up on a legitimate website address. So for instance, if they call you and they're say they're from Wells Fargo and they're talking about refinancing your house, except you have an apartment, not a house, that's a pretty good sign. But again, if you do have a house and you do have a mortgage and they call you claiming to be from Wells Fargo, call them back at a number that you look up on the Wells Fargo website or that you have a statement, a bank statement. Use the numbers that you know are good. Do not use the numbers that they give you over the phone because they will try to lead you right back into their call center. Lastly, with phone calls, something else to think about too is you can't necessarily trust caller ID. Caller ID is surprisingly easy to spoof, and in this day and age, it's gotten even simpler. So the caller ID that shows up on your phone that says it's from Wells Fargo does not necessarily mean it's from Wells Fargo. And I hate to pick on Wells Fargo. I should be picking on Chase, but they're the example that comes to mind. So I want to pause here and ask if there are any questions about the J.P. Morgan Chase breach before we move on to our next topic. Holly, do we have any questions?
So far not. I do have a question. Will you have or do you have on the security.apu.edu website a link to that Chase page that talks about it and from Chase's point of view?
I will put that in the show notes for today.
Okay, good.
So,
because as a Chase customer, I would be curious to read more on what Chase has to say about it. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will put that link up on the security.apu.edu website. On the left-hand side, there will be a link to Ask the Security Guy, where we have recordings of these Hangouts. And I will put the links to relevant information in there from today's show.
And I'll also probably duplicate some of that same show notes and everything on the training.apu.edu website, so you can find it. Security.apu.edu is a great resource to check out. Lots of good stuff there. So I'm not seeing any questions about the Chase. So shall we talk about everyone's favorite dog of the day?
So the vicious poodle attack that hit the news and is still in the news and has caused a great amount of concern. So poodle is an acronym given The long name is Padding Oracle on Downgraded Legacy Encryption. Now, if that sounds like geek, it is.
It is. Very much. Let's go with poodle.
So for future reference, we'll stick with the dog. Basically, what the poodle attack does is it allows a bad guy to sit between you and whatever web service or website you're trying to hit and intercept what's going on and basically take over your connection. So if you're logged into your bank and you're sitting at Starbucks and I, as the attacker, am using the poodle attack successfully, basically what happens is I can intercept your connection to the bank, hit the bank as you, and now I'm logged into your account. And then I can initiate wire transfers, all kinds of good stuff as you. So poodle is not very widespread. That's the good news. And it is used it uses an old version of SSL. SSL, the HTTPS, the little lock that we see in the address bar when we go to a website. SSL version 3 is what's vulnerable to the poodle attack. And kind of the English version of the way it works is SSL version 3 was replaced by a different standard, a newer standard, back in 1999. But because we have this ongoing legacy of supporting ancient technology on the internet, it's still around. So at APU, we are currently in the process of patching all of our web servers to make sure that this is just gone, that we don't support it anymore, and that no one that comes to APU's resources will be vulnerable to the attack. Now, the attack has two components. There's the web server, which can be part of the equation, but there's also your computer, your web browser, Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, all had vulnerabilities to this. Now, in the past couple of weeks, Chrome has released an updated version that takes care of this. So on Chrome, it's no longer an issue. Firefox, I believe, is either releasing it very soon or has already released it. And Internet Explorer also has something in the works via an update, a hotfix that will be coming through Windows Update. Early on, Apple did not even acknowledge that the vulnerability existed, but on October 16th, they released a security update for Mavericks and Mountain Lion that was meant to protect Macs against the poodle attacks. OS X Yosemite, the newest version, also included the fix. However, in some third-party testing on Safari 7 on patched Macs running Mavericks and Safari 8 on Yosemite still reported that it was vulnerable. So kind of back to the drawing board on that. Use caution if you're a Safari user. One of the other things that we're going to be doing on security.apu.edu, and Holly and I will be working on tips on support.apu.edu. We will include instructions for either patching whatever browser it is that you're using, or there are tweaks. For instance, if there's some reason that you cannot upgrade your browser to a version that supports the fix, there are other ways to disable support for SSL version 3, the version of HTTPS, if you will, that is vulnerable to poodle. And that will protect you and then whatever website you're connecting to from ever being forced to downgrade your connection to SSL version 3, which again is a very old, very defunct version of HTTPS. So that's poodle in a nutshell.
So best practices, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but if I'm sitting at Starbucks on my laptop, what sites should I avoid going to? Just as a basic rule of thumb, when you're on a public Wi-Fi like the airport, like Starbucks?
There's a few things I never do when I'm using, for instance, an airport Wi-Fi or a Starbucks, if you will, or some other third-party Wi-Fi that's provisioned like that. I never log into my bank, and I'm very, very cautious about any other sites that accept or have stored financial information. I do access APU resources, um, but again, do that with caution. When you're on those types of connections, you have to be careful. Now, as it relates to Poodle, you can log into APU resources from wherever safely. But across the world, different companies are at different places in patching Poodle. So just be aware of that. Some are putting out announcements, some are not. And then there's also a website that I will post on the show notes that show if you have a website that you want to go to, but you're not sure if they've already fixed the Poodle vulnerability, where you can just plug in their website to check and see if they're safe or not.
Good. So I don't see any questions. If you've got a question, feel free to pop it in the Q&A box that you should be able to access. So we do have some time. And before our next broadcast, everyone's favorite shopping day is coming. And I will actually probably spend mine sitting on the couch watching hopefully some good football games and shopping online. So things that we need to think about, whether we're shopping online, even in a store, things that we should think about.
So yes, the holiday season is upon us, and my favorite way to shop is online. I hate going into brick and mortar stores. I hate shopping in general. However, the times are what they are. So some safe tips in dealing with online shopping as the holiday season comes up, and a lot of this is going to sound like familiar things. Use familiar websites. Go to websites you know and trust. If you're going to shop at Macy's, shop at Macy's. If you're going to shop at Walmart, shop at Walmart. But stick with the familiar websites, big names that you know and trust. Another tip, look for the lock. When you go to the address bar, there should be the lock in the left-hand side that shows you're on a secure connection. Make sure, especially if you're buying something and not just browsing, that you see that lock icon. A third point, if you're on some websites and they're asking you for odd information, like all of a sudden they want to know your social security number, or when you're filling out a form, look at the form. A lot of retailers and any website that requires your information, they're going to ask for all kinds of information, but they're going to usually point out the required fields with an asterisk. Mm-hmm. Give them the minimum information required. Never volunteer information to any website that you're filling out forms on. Check your bank statements. You go through this month and all the sales and everything else. Even if you're not shopping online, always check your bank statements at the end of the month for charges that just you don't remember, they don't belong, they're huge, they're small. A lot of times what crooks will do is they'll put a small charge on there just to make sure the card works. And if you spot one of those, be concerned. Contact your credit card company, tell them about it, and follow the advice that they'll give you. Make sure your computer is up to date. You've done your Windows updates, you've done your Apple updates, you have a version of antivirus at home that isn't an expired subscription. If you're using a free version, make sure it's still active. But make sure that whatever you're using is up to date. Another tip, use strong passwords. We recommend that you use a password manager and that you generate strong passwords that are unique to every website you go to. A password manager like Dashlane or LastPass, both of which we recommend, are great for creating one-time passwords that are unique to the site that you go to. and then you don't have to worry about remembering them because the password manages for you. I have no idea, for instance, what my Amazon password is. Not a clue. I know it's 18 characters long and it's gibberish. Beyond that, couldn't tell you. A lot of times, especially this time of year, I get questions about, is it safe to shop from my mobile device, my tablet, my phone, something else? The answer is yes. It is safe. However, um, use a, the app from the company you're going to shop at. So, for instance, Amazon has an Amazon app.
Mhm.
That's what I use to shop on Amazon. There are other apps out there that say they interact with multiple retailers. Be very cautious. Not all of those are legitimate, and some of them can be siphoning off a lot more than just marketing information. Avoid shopping in any public terminal or from any public Wi-Fi. Um, again, I just don't recommend shopping or financial information via these types of connections. You never know, one, who's listening on public Wi-Fi, and you just don't know on the public terminals who's been doing what on those things. It is surprisingly easy on a public terminal like a library or some of these cyber cafes. It's pretty easy to install a keyboard logger that records everything you type on that keyboard and sends it to somebody. You just don't know who.
Yeah, a couple of things. Here at APU, our libraries, all of our computers, when they refresh, when they're restarted, they go back to their original image. So if you do use a computer in the library, if you're worried, just restart it and log in again. And we do
Yep.
have a question just popped
Okay.
in regarding filling out forms.
Mhm.
What's your recommendation on filling out security questions to recover your account password?
Security questions. I hate them. So,
Yes, yes, he does.
so probably the best advice I've ever heard, and I love to share with people, is for security questions. I recommend that you come up with a set of fake answers and store them in a password manager as notes to whatever website you used it on. But never, if at all possible, use real information about yourself. So, for instance, a common security question is, what city were you born? Well, between me and Google, I can probably find that out in maybe 5 minutes. And then there's other websites that provide much more detailed information. Some are free, some are paid. Oftentimes, these websites are used for background checks, so they dig up a lot of information on an individual. Security questions are based on things you know and things you are or things from your past. Unfortunately, while those things are generally easy to remember because they're part of who we are, they're also pretty easy to research and look up these days. So, best practice I can tell you is make sure that when you are answering security questions, the answers you're giving are fake and that they're unique to whatever site you're using. So, use a set of fake answers that even if I did research on you, it wouldn't matter.
Now, this is my question.
Hmm?
So, they've been asking personal questions as identification forever.
Yes.
Would I be able to go back to my bank or whatever and say, you know what, I want to change these answers because anybody and their cousin, 5 minutes can figure out what my mother's maiden name is.
So in a lot of cases, the websites that require these security questions will periodically ask you to update the information or to verify the information. And if, for instance, they don't let you update it whenever you want, contact customer service and request the ability to do so. Or when the opportunity comes and they ask you to update the information, repopulate those security questions with the fake answers that you've come up with.
Got another question.
Okay.
Came in. Is it more safe to use a VPN service at a public Wi-Fi to do secure stuff like shopping or banking?
Absolutely. Yes.
Now, probably for some, they're going to need to understand what VPN is.
So what a VPN connection does is it establishes a tunnel between your computer and their server somewhere out there. For instance, I use a service called ProXPN. And what ProXPN does is it creates a secure tunnel between my computer and their servers wherever they are in the world, and I choose where my data comes out. So, for instance, one day I can appear like I'm coming out of Seattle, another day from Dallas. I can also choose to come out in European countries if I want to. And the connection between me and that endpoint is completely encrypted and secure. So that means even if I'm sitting at Starbucks and somebody is sitting there sniffing all the wireless traffic, the only thing they're seeing coming out of my computer is gibberish. And that's fine because that's what I want them to see. They cannot snoop on my connection. There are free services out there. ProXPN, like I said, is something I use personally. And then there are paid services as well. ProXPN offers both, and there are other VPN solutions out there for personal use. And VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. So I hope that answers the question. I know it's a little geekish.
Yeah, it is. But if for people who there's some people they may not have wireless at home or have an internet at home, and they're desperate to get on, and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, using a private VPN solution like that provides a lot of anonymity and a lot of security in those cases where you just can't get away from using a public Wi-Fi. And most of them offer solutions for Apple or Android and most devices.
Nice. So, do we have any other questions out there? So, no, I'm not seeing any, and we are at 11:28. Let's see, good questions. I can't think of any more, sorry. So with that, always feel free. You can email iso@apu.edu if you have security questions, security concerns. We'll be back the first Wednesday in December, same time, same place, and you'll be hearing more about it. So want to thank everyone for being a part, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.